What's up, everybody? Welcome to the August 25th group coaching call for CSO University. Today, we're going to be continuing our series on how to charge high ticket on a recurring basis. We're also going to be discussing how to use essentially different social media platforms so we can start scaling your business a little bit more aggressively. What I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly paste the invite link if you want to join. But again, the entire focus of this call is going to be focusing on those high ticket items, covering the top of funnel content, and then covering some automations that we can create within your own business. And that's going to tie into some of the high ticket recurring things. In the comments, I just dropped the link if you want to join the call live and talk one on one. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue on and essentially um, just go through the entire process. So I'll start with a really quick recap. I'll start with a explanation of what we're going to be doing with the high ticket recurring services. And then we'll go from there basically. So if you haven't seen these calls before, just to reiterate, what we're doing is we're essentially having group calls within our private community known as SASO University, where essentially we're working with digital agencies, helping them scale up in a cost efficient and timely manner. Um, so what we covered on the last call, and I want to kind of use that and segue into what we're covering on this call, but what we covered in the last call was essentially how we can start using one-time and recurring setup charges for high ticket. Now, when I say high ticket, what we're looking at, ideally, we're looking at least 1,000 a month for one service. I wouldn't call 500 high ticket, maybe mid ticket, but really anything 500 up. Usually the barrier to entry into high level or high ticket is going to be 1,000. So we'll say 1,000 up. Now, what we covered in the last call were the high ticket one time setup services. So an example of that would be a fully optimized website. Maybe you're building it in WordPress, or maybe you're building it in their high level account where they can take it, kind of run with it. And that'd be a one time setup. Another one time high ticket charge would be an SEO sprint. So for an SEO sprint, you're essentially doing the optimized website, but then you're also doing enough SEO for an entire 12-month period, compressing that into 1 month, and then selling that for roughly 3 to 5,000 as a one-time fee. Towards the end of last week's training, if you haven't seen it, we essentially were discussing how we can start getting into high ticket recurring services. So recurring meaning every month, these people are going to be spending 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 or more for a particular service or set of services. So what we covered in the last week, and the training is live now in SASO University. If you're not familiar with what SASO University is, but essentially what SASO University is, it's a series of trainings where we basically take you from 0 clients to several clients and then several clients to high ticket clients. So in that program, we have the high ticket course on how to use video podcasting as a monthly recurring service. One of the first students in this community was Tim, landed a 2150 client. And then Tim, bad news, Grant has trumped you with 2,200 a month. So we decided when I spoke to Grant, we wanted to outprice you just a little bit, create some rivalry. So Grant came in, closed, I want to say it was Thursday night, closed a 2,200 a month client, also doing video podcast post production. So super excited for Grant and Tim. Definitely can't wait to see how that process is going and catch up with you on that one. But essentially, what Grant did is the same thing we covered in the training. The training covers it fully in depth, but essentially, just a very quick recap. You're doing a video podcast interview. You're using SEO uh, rich questions. So that way you're asking questions that are going to resonate on Google. They're going to resonate on these social media platforms. Yes, Grant Fielding or Felding, however you say his name. But yeah, he essentially just landed a massive client. Um, and essentially, he does a video podcast interview. He goes on Google. He looked at people also ask. He expands those questions. Those are just the FAQs that pop up on Google. And he asks all the questions that a potential buyer may ask. And then takes that to them with a list, interviews them, takes the interview, post produces all of that content into YouTube videos, into short form clips, into I think he's just saying video, but he could also put post produce that into audio clips. He could post produce that into blogs, into tweets, into captions, into stills, into graphics, a whole bunch of different things. So just on the short form, he's doing 4 sessions a month, absolutely crushing it. And his fees, if you think 22 sounds high, 2200 that is, if you think that sounds high, if you look at post production on Fiverr, if you look at post production for another company, they're going to be between $5 and $15 per 30 to 60-second clip. So it's actually pretty competitive with those rates where he is able to have a massive advantage where he's able to leverage the 2200 a month as he's able to basically do bulk discounts. So 1 video, 2 videos, yeah, maybe 15 video, but he's able to say, hey, we're going to post produce you between 60 and 100 clips. And because of that, it's actually more time efficient and cost efficient for him just to knock them out. And his client is super, super happy. He's also following up with Social Bee, where he's going to make sure that the client's feed never runs dry. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, if you're interested in doing a high ticket recurring service where you're doing the video post production into the top of funnel content, go check out the training that we have in SASO University where it kind of covers that step by step. If you need a more broken down, in-depth tutorial or guide, let me know and I will make that for you. And somebody asked in the comments, they said Grant seemed like a new SaaS owner that just started, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, Grant is very, very new. I don't know how new he is to HighLevel or how new he is to SaaS in general, but here's what I can tell you. Grant joined the Facebook group and SASO University. He joined about 2 months ago. So within 2 months, he's landed a $2,200 a month client. And I know he has other clients besides that. But 2 months and landed his first high ticket client. That's not bad at all. Even if he had no other clients, that would have covered all of his fees. Let's say he's on the 497 plan. That would cover his fees for those 2 months. And it would ensure that he's covered for the next 2 months. So he's already making some profits off of that. So he is absolutely killing it. I'm super happy for him. But yeah, so again, that training is in SASO University. If you're interested in joining, go through the link in the bio. If you're already in, the training's already live, so you can go ahead and check it out, take a look. So again, that's kind of that was the intro into the high ticket monthly recurring services. What we're going to be discussing today, and before I do that, I know there's another question in the chat I want to answer, but what we're going to be discussing today is a secondary recurring high ticket service that you guys can offer with very, very little experience. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. One of the comments in the private question said, maybe wrong, but hopping straight into a high ticket service with any new client may seem daunting to them. Not sure, at least in my case for auto. So working with auto detailer. Yeah. So high ticket is going to be daunting regardless, but what we want to do is we want to justify the pricing. So for example, with Grant, we're saying, cool, you're doing the full podcast interview, the full production, posting to social media management at 2,200, and then you're post producing 80 to 100 clips. So what would the math be on that? We broke it down and then we basically compared that to the competitors' competition, and we added in some of his expertise, which was the industry angle, which made a massive advantage for Grant. So high ticket is daunting, but not to a new client. It's more so daunting to a new SaaS agency owner because it's the first time you're saying, hey, you're paying me an amount per month that has a comma in it. And that can be a little daunting to make that ask. The easiest way to make that ask is to just compare it to the value and then essentially just make the ask. It's going to be scary the first time you do it. But once you say the price, I told Grant, I said, once you say the price, he's a very calm, cool, collected guy. But I told him, once you say that price, sit back, sip your water, right? Just be like this. Hey, it's 2,200 a month, right? And then go like this. And you just sit there and kind of let them stew. And that's exactly, I don't know if that's exactly what he did, but that's exactly, you can ask him. That's exactly what I told him to do. Sit back, take a sip, and just let them stew on the number because, uh, again, he knew the client, he knew this individual, so he obviously knew what he could and could not get away with. But at the end of the day, it always boils down to two main questions. Number one, is the individual I'm speaking to, are they or their industry in a high ticket position? So what does that mean? If you're dealing with people who do, I'm going to try to pick some like off the wall industries just to prove my point. But if I'm dealing with someone who does, let's say, oil changes, like what's the price point for an oil change, right? It's like 20 to at the most $100. Like depending on like the model of the vehicle and the type of oil, right? 20 to $100. So that's not really a high ticket offer. But if I talk to somebody who's doing like epoxy floors that can run 2 to 5,000, right? If I, how many clients do I have to get my client to justify that price point? So it's really interesting when you work with an industry or with an individual, you want to make sure that you're working with somebody who can afford to work with you or whom you can help afford you. And what do I mean by that? If you have zero clients and they're doing epoxy floors for 2 to 5K, you have zero of them and you say, hey, I'm going to land you a client for 5K. I'm not going to charge you anything. I'm going to land your client for 5K. All I want is 500 to 1,000 of that first client. Afterwards, after your first, couple of clients, we can talk about a retainer deal if you're happy with my work. And because you're going to be the only source of income for them or leads for them, then they're going to be happy to work with you. And if not, then cool, you have case studies and you go to another one. The fact of the matter is, one client covers your fee and then some, right? However, if I look at something that's smaller ticket, and the same goes for advertising, right? But if I look at something that goes for smaller ticket, like oil changes, lawn care, maybe plumbing, right? Maybe HVAC services. When they're lower ticket, it's going to be a little bit harder to justify a higher price point because you have to say, cool, I have to get you 5 or 10 clients before you can pay for my services. And then I still have to get you more clients. Otherwise, you're just making enough to pay me and there's no actual benefit for you besides more work and you don't get to keep the money, right? So I'm not saying abandon those industries. What I'm saying is make sure that when you're working with clients, the price point somewhat reflects the industry or where they are. So, for example, if they're in a massive city and maybe they're charging lower ticket like HVAC, plumbing, dentistry really isn't that high ticket too much, right? They have high ticket offers, but it's usually a lower ticket, right? What's going to happen is you're going to have to either justify multiple clients or justify their high ticket items. So when you work with those industries, let's say they're offering only low ticket offers and they need a lot of it. Well, if they're getting a lot of it, then it's going to be a lot easier to essentially justify it, right? Because if I can say, cool, you're getting about 1,000 jobs a month, right? Which might sound crazy, but I've seen it a lot. You're getting 1,000 jobs a month, but maybe they're lower ticket, maybe they're in the 3 to 500 range versus the 3 to 5,000 range. Then I'm gonna have to get you X amount, and it's more believable or more palatable if they already have that kind of flow coming in. Now, where is it going to be really difficult? It's going to be really difficult to say, hey, you're only charging $50 a job or $100 a job. My rate is 1,000 a month and you have no clients. Yeah, that's going to be really difficult for them to digest. And that means if you know it's going to be difficult for them to digest, then you aren't really going to feel confident when it comes to pitching that service because you already have in your mind the presupposition that they can't afford it. So that's going to shake your confidence and then what's going to happen? You're going to feel bad. You're going to want to lower your prices, or you need the sale so bad that you're going to lower your prices and you end up doing the same amount of work for less money than you could. So the solution is really simple. It's going to be the following. You're going to charge according to who you're working with when you start out. You start free or low, free trial, maybe free setup, whatever. Build your case studies like we talked about in the step one training and then you move into slowly, steadily increasing your prices every 3 to 5 clients. And what's really funny is if you have seen the new Alex Hormozy training, where he talks about getting your first 5 clients, it is almost verbatim what I have been telling you. Now, I obviously know he is not going out and watching my training. That would be ridiculous. What I'm saying is if I'm saying it and he's also saying it and other people are also saying it, then there must be some truth in it. And he was saying almost verbatim what I said 3 to 5 clients. He said, you could do 3, you could do 5. And then he says, increase your prices roughly 20% every 3 to 5. What have I been telling you guys? Increase your prices every so often, every 3 to 5, because that's the scope of control. Increase them a certain percentage to where it makes sense. And then he says, turn around in the freebies, say, hey, I have a lot of people coming in, but I'd rather work with you. Would you consider doing this? Would you consider paying to move forward? And if they say yes, you keep them. And if they say no, you molt them. That's exactly what I tell you in the best vertical SWAS offer training. So it was pretty cool because I'm watching his training and I like to take notes when I'm watching his training. It was cool because I like for a solid like 45 minutes, I just put the pen down. And I was like, this is exactly what I'm telling people to do. The difference is I'm applying it to SaaS and digital agencies, whereas he's applying it to as many businesses as possible. So love his content. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. When I say that to say, be aware of the average ticket size for the potential clients. And that's a good indicator of where you can reflect your initial pricing. Also be aware of the volume, right? So if they're getting high ticket, low volume, you can work with that. If they're getting low ticket, high volume, you can work with that. But if they're low ticket, low volume, like an absolute beginner, it's going to be harder to work with. So that's why it's really ideal when you're brand new to work with these people, because if you burn a contact or if you burn a client because you don't know what you're doing, you're just starting out. If you're doing it for low cost, or first of all, if you're doing it for free, and they can only get so mad because you're doing a free service. But if you're doing it for a low cost, then you're probably working with a lower quality client. And I'm just saying lower as in relative, right? If I talk to every business owner that doesn't have a website, they're going to be lower quality than every business owner that actually has a website. If I talk to every business owner that has a website versus every business owner that has a fully optimized website, the quality of client is going to increase because obviously they value or they understand the value of these things, right? So uh, when it comes to these people charging these higher ticket pricing, they're working with uh, medium-sized businesses in terms of revenue, not in terms of size, right? You could have a one-man business making a lot of money. You can have a 20-man business that's losing money every month, right? So again, look at the offer, the average ticket offer, look at the estimated volume. Easy way to understand volume is when you talk to them. Hey, how's the business doing right now? Where do you want it to be? What do you think's holding you up, right? The modified close that we do through the DMs that we cover in the step 4 training or the step 3 training, right? Where they DM you. So that's just my little snippet. That's my little tangent on hopping into the high ticket services. Um, and on the flip side, right? I'll say this before you transition over. If you know somebody's making 100,000 a month, do you think they're going to bat an eye at $1,000 a month if you're going to get them more clients in that regard, right? If somebody's charging 10K, right, for a single product or 5K per single service, if you're coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm 1,000 a month or 2,000 a month," if I get you one client, I've already doubled your investment in me, but I'm going to get you this many clients using this course of action. And that usually starts with the social media, which we'll cover in a moment. So hopefully that answers your question. Um, I'm gonna, Imran, do you want to hop in and elaborate if you have any more questions on that before we move on to the next section on automation? I'll give him a second, see if he wants to hop in or not. Maybe not. Okay. So moving on to the next section, what we're going to cover is the second thing that we can offer every single month, which is going to be the using automations in the business. So this is where when we use automations in the business, we can also charge pretty high ticket. The reason that we're going to charge high ticket for these automations is because essentially they are going to replace certain individuals or the need for certain individuals within the business. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is if I have a service that I'm doing every single month, that service is most likely has some things that can be automated. So, for example, uh, smaller businesses with their secretarial services, right? Somebody calls in or they DM in and they basically want to get routed to the individual that they want to speak with. These are things that are being automated in Facebook DMs, in Go High Level chat widgets. These are conversations that are being fully automated using AI. So that's where if I can say, cool, we can put this automation in, and in exchange for this automation, you now don't have to hire an individual who's going to be doing this work for you. And so what you do and how you justify that pricing, right? Uh, you're essentially going to look at, right, what's the minimum wage? Is this a full-time or part-time employee? What's the potential overhead? So we're going to usually add 20 to 30%. And then we're going to compare that with your cost. So if I look at minimum wage in whatever state they're in, do the math, say, cool, you're roughly paying about this much. And then overhead is between 15 and 30% more. So is this about how much you're paying or would pay? They'll probably say like, yeah, it's about, this give or take. And then you go, cool. Well, with my automation, instead of paying 3,600 or 4K total in employment tax, payroll, this and that, all that stuff, you can pay 2,000 a month and you get unlimited business automations. And so when you're doing those business automations, you're basically building those out in HighLevel, in Zapier, in Integromat, which is now known as Make, in Pabbly, in any IFTTT software, which is going to be if this, then that. So that's essentially where we're going to come in. And this is going to be a lot simpler to explain, but more complicated when it comes to actually applying this. Because when we're talking about for example, the video uh, podcast post production, right? The setup is the same. I get my questions, I interview, I post produce, I post to social media. It doesn't matter what industry because all that's going to change is the initial portion where you're basically changing the questions that you're going to be asking and changing the questions that you're going to be looking at, right? Uh, versus when you go into the automations, what happens with the automations? Well, with the automations, now what you've got to do is you've got to figure out everything they're doing. And I'm going to go through a little walkthrough during this call, but you're going to go through everything that they're doing. You've got to look at how we're going to document the entire task structure, the work breakdown structure, right? And with that breakdown structure, what you're going to be looking at is you're going to be looking at where can I essentially um, simplify and then automate, right? And we talk about this in the SASO train where we simplify, we're removing, we're eradicating as much waste as possible. So waste refers to anything that's inefficient in terms of we're not doing things the way we could be doing them. We're not using people. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that like we're not uh, using people for certain tasks where they could be better suited. We're overusing people or underutilizing people. And so we have to look at that from a business coaching point of view, right? And if you're confused on how to do that, it's very clearly um, explained in the Say So training. And in the Say So training, what you're going to see is you're going to essentially see the first thing you do is you figure out, hey, how do we document the existing process? How do we improve that process? And then we have to tag those things, those categories, or those tasks rather, as one of three things. And those one of three things are the following, right? Can AI do this? Maybe a human can do this, but not the business owner, or maybe the business owner or a higher tiered individual does need to be the one doing this. For example, a manager, uh, C-suite depends on how big and how structured the company is, right? But for example, when it comes to payroll, you probably don't want an employee doing that. You probably want somebody a little bit higher up doing that. When it comes to a simple follow up, well, we can use an automation to do that, right? And so that's essentially what it boils down to. It boils down to look at the process, the existing process. So, hey, how do you do this? What's that process look like? And you have to meticulous document everything, right? Document everything as meticulously as possible. Then you're going to go, cool. Can we remove any of these steps? Are we missing any steps? And then making sure that all of the key individuals who are touching that process sign off on that. So, what do I mean? Well, if I go to one person, if I go to the business owner and I say, hey, does this process look right? And he goes, yeah, it looks right. And then I go to the people who are actually doing the process and I go, hey, does this look right to you? And they go, no, you're missing this, you're missing that, you're missing this. Like, what about this? What about when it gets projected? Right. So you need to talk to everybody involved. That documents the process. And then from that documented process, you now have your starting. So the hardest thing that it's going to happen when you're pitching automation as a service is that you have to document the existing process. You have to make sure that all the boxes are checked in terms of what needs to be accomplished for the business. And then you go, cool. Now I'm going to color tag my items. So what can be automated? When we look at automation, we want to look at what can we do at HighLevel or an alternative IFTTT, right? If this, then that software. What I will say, here's what I will say. You can build it in HighLevel and it's much easier for you to replicate and you can even rebuild. So there's a few different ways to charge for this, right? So you can rebuild if you have the SaaS, I believe it's the SaaS plan for HighLevel, which is the 497 plan, $497 plan. You can rebuild and you can rebuild as much as you want. So you could say, hey, it's 2 cents in automation. It's 3 cents in automation. However you want to do that, right? Now, HighLevel bills at an LC premium trigger or automation, they rebill at, I believe, 1 cent in automation. Now, here's what I'm going to say about that. 1 cent in automation, if you think that sounds cheap, it's actually not as cheap as you may think. Um, it's actually a little bit more expensive. And I'll show you an example. So this is Make. It used to be known as Integromat. If you speak with any of the virtual assistants, any of the Fiverr guys, they usually love using Make. Make is usually their go-to because of the nice automations. So I want to show you. So number one, I told you the LC, which is the lead connector premium triggers or automations, they run about 1 cent in automation. But here, if I have 10,000 operations a month at $9 a month, you're looking at less than a penny, much less than a penny for one automation. Now, obviously, this changes as you go through more, and this obviously depends on the different automations. So even at 29 a month, you're looking at zero point zero 0.03 cents in automation, if my math is right. And at 9 a month, you're looking at roughly zero point zero 0.01 cent in automation. So you could essentially get 100 of these automations for the price of one automation in HighLevel. Now, um, this is my recommendation when it comes to building the automations. Number one, you can bill however you want to bill. So what I'm going to be giving you is essentially like a rough idea in terms of billing, but you can really talk to the business owner, see how they want to do it. But there's a few different ways you can do it. So you can do the setup, you can do the setup and the management, or you can do the setup, the management, and the rebuild. So, for example, you could say, "Hey, I'm going to build this for you in your sub account." You don't have to call it a sub account to them, but you can build it for them in their sub account, their HighLevel account. Right? And then you can let them know, "Hey, I'm going to build it for you once." And we rebuild. So the one-time build, maybe we build it for 1,000, 2,000. Then we're going to rebuild at, instead of, because LC is going to charge you a penny in automation, you can say, cool, we're going to rebuild at 5 cents in automation, something like that. So you get your 1,000 set up, and then you can do, so this is a lower ticket, right? One-time payment. And then, hey, I rebill at, 5 cents. Of course, you're not going to say rebill. I'm saying rebilling so that you on the call can understand the payment structure, right? So you get to keep 4 cents per automation. Now, obviously, the more uh, clients or engagements the client is going to have is going to make you more or less money. So just be aware of that. So that's option one. Option one is they pay for the setup. You can build it in HighLevel, or you can build it in Make. And in Make, you can put together the solution and you can give them the solution. So you can literally build it out and then you can send it to them, integrate it. Again, one time setup. And now, because in HighLevel you're rebuilding, you could do a little bit less. You could say, hey, it's 1,000, and then you rebuild. If you build it in Make, because they can take it and run with it, and you're not going to make money off of trigger, you can say, hey, one time payment of $2,000. So that's option one. That's the lowest option. $1,000 to $2,000 package where you hand it over, either built in HighLevel or built in Make. If you're building it in HighLevel, what's the difference besides the pricing? If you're building in HighLevel, you're limited to the HighLevel workflow. You're limited to the premium triggers in HighLevel. You're also limited to using the APIs. If you're building it in Make, you get all of these different services. So all these different services that integrate really easily. It's a little bit easier. You can hand it over, and you can see, not Discord. You can see they even have HighLevel lead connector. And so what's cool is you can still use Make with HighLevel, and you have all these different templates that it gives you. So it gives you all these different things that it could do for you, which is really cool. And then it also shows how you can connect any app with HighLevel. So it can show you, cool, what app do you want to create? And so you can create, if your client has, if, for example, we talk about this all the time when we're talking about integrating other apps with HighLevel, if they already have some sort of a CRM already put in place, right? So look, Pipedrive CRM, let's see, HubSpot CRM, ClickUp, Monday. So if they already have one of these that they don't want to get rid of, you can be like, oh, not a problem. We're just integrate it. And so what you're doing, right, is now you can say, because you're integrating it, you can do, again, one of two things. You can hand it over to them if you want to, just for your first couple, just to make sure they're happy, just to get comfortable selling high ticket. But down the road, you can basically be like, cool, option two, we're going to build and manage this for you. So now here's what's going to happen. We're going to charge this. They're going to pay for the automations out of pocket, but we're going to manage and build out all these automations. You can integrate it with Elementor if you're using a WordPress website. You've got SMS, Google Chat, Twitch, all these different platforms. I'm just clicking load more, Spotify even. I mean, it gets crazy how many things you can integrate with. Look at this Google ad campaign. Now, obviously, HighLevel already has that kind of integration. You can basically bring in all these different things. You can even have more Google My Business automation. So um, that's another way where you can just pull everything into a nice automation, and then you can manage this automation for them. Maybe they're running Square to charge for their business. I had a client who was doing that. box files if you're sharing video. So it gets really crazy really quickly. And I could, obviously do this all evening, but the entire point of what I'm trying to show you is that if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm using this tool already, I want to integrate it." Yes, you can do certain API integrations with HighLevel, but you could always build out everything in Make, and you don't have to use HighLevel. Maybe you're using ClickFunnels, maybe you're using WordPress, maybe you don't want to touch anything. And the first thing you want to do before you can start signing up for HighLevel, you want to say, "I want to start building automation, sell that, and then use the money I make off that to also go into other software, SaaS software." Um, Maybe you just want to go into HighLevel itself, or maybe you want to expand upon your existing HighLevel. And you start getting to other email services. So if you want to integrate HighLevel with, like, Never Bounce, it's an email service. So you can basically, using Make, and I'll show you another one. If we're using Zapier, Zapier is another one. This is another tool that none of this is very, none of this is like very secretive. I don't think they integrate with HighLevel. Yeah, I don't think they don't integrate with HighLevel. But again, if they don't want to use, oh, there's Lead Connector, so it does integrate. There we go. And so if someone's using ClickFunnels, you can integrate HighLevel with ClickFunnels now if they really don't like it. You can integrate with all these different things. It even shows you different simple ways that you can integrate these things. And so you can build out all of these automations. And this is going to come into effect of something else I'm going to cover during this call. But you can essentially cover all of these automations, and you can get really, really intricate with the different automations that you build. And you can get really, really intricate with everything you're putting together for that. And so with Zapier, let me see. So Zapier, let's see. If I'm using, look at this, Service Titan. So anybody who's working with a blue collar industry where you're doing Service Titan, you can now integrate their customer facing CRM and their customer facing tool. And I could integrate that with HighLevel. And so this is when I talk about how we're going to integrate these tools together, this is how we're going to do it. And so what's happening is you are essentially taking HighLevel, right? Hear me out. You're taking HighLevel and you are stacking software on HighLevel. So now you're saying, "Hey, we're going to give you HighLevel. We're going to stack it with Service Titan, and we're going to create this really intricate system that does everything you want it to do. We're going to have beautiful forms with JotForm. We're going to integrate it with your HighLevel. We're going to integrate it with Service Titan. We're going to put it all together, and I'm going to brand it under my business." So now, if we're talking about strictly reselling SaaS, right? The service you're adding, if you still want to call it SWAS, SaaS, however you want to call it, right? The service you're now adding is you're now creating a really intricate software stack. And that software stack is allowing you to no longer charge 297, 497. You are now coming in and you're saying, you're getting, think about this, right? Think about the sheer value, the full website, the Google business listing, the full integration with whatever customer facing CRM, with whatever email, with whatever, it doesn't matter. As we've seen by Make, as we've seen by Zapier, the full integration, right? You've got the entire full integration stacking plus your knowledge of how to say so their business and your increasing knowledge of how to improve their marketing. All stuff that we're covering in SASO University, right? Everything that we're covering. Let me see. And someone just said, "I'm doing a Zap to Jobber service right now. I need to be charging more." Yes, you need to be charging much more, because here's the thing, right? Let's look at, so they say they're using Jobber, right? So let's look at Jobber. This is what I'm gonna show you the pricing. So, um, let's see. Grant said he's using Jobber. Welcome, Grant. I was just bragging about you a little bit. Congrats on the big close. Let's look at pricing. So pricing, check this out. Pricing is gonna be 49 to 245 a month. I'm not gonna do what other people do. I'm not gonna tell you, "Oh, let's look at 245." Let's look at the lowest end, right? Let's be hyper realistic here. You're putting together your HighLevel, which we know we should not charge a penny under 97. It's not just about the terms of service with advertising, because technically, if you're not advertising, you can go lower. I'm talking about strictly for the purpose of your time, making it worth your time. We're not going to go below uh, 97. Then you're adding 49, right? So now we're at roughly 150, right? Stay with me as I do my army math, okay? We're at 150 roughly, right? We know that we want our costs to be about 20%. Ideally, your cost should be 20%. There's going to be other hidden costs. So your profit margins aren't going to sit at 80%. But when we're talking about software to a client, we want it to be roughly 20% cost, right? So you're at 150 right now. Then you're integrating Zapier as Grant said. So now he's adding Zapier into it. And Zapier, if we go back to the pricing, let's go back. So I want to make this very visually understandable, right? Maybe he's doing 0. He's only doing 100 tasks a month. Usually because they don't want to do single zaps, he might be on the 20, let's say 20 at the cheapest plan a month, right? So right there, we're at 170. If 170 should be 20%, right? So that means we want to do 170. I'm pulling up my calculator, so I'm doing my army math. 170 times about 5. So 850, right? 850 should be ideally where we're charging because you're now integrating the full website, you're integrating the full CRM that they want to use, you're connecting it and you're managing it all together, and you're making sure that the management and the communication between the two are smooth. When that individual has a problem, because there's now a more complicated, I'm going to say relatively more complicated software stack, they now need to come to you. So 850 is not that difficult to understand when it comes to pricing. But you could go to them and be like, hey, listen, it's $499 a month. It's $497 a month. And in that 500 a month, you're getting the software, Service Titan, and the full automation. And so you could set that up and you could hand it over. And now they are going to get for 497, which is half, almost is roughly half of the 850, right? Not exactly, I know, bear with me, but you're going a little over half of what you should be charging. You're saying, cool, it's 500 a month. I'm going to build everything out for you. And then from everything that I've built out for you, why would they not want to leave? Well, here's the reason. If you're using a software stack to integrate all of this together, doesn't that mean that there does not exist a tool that could do all this for you? The answer is yes. There's no Service Titan and Java. They don't give you your own website. So you are essentially connecting, you are tying together all these platforms that otherwise would not work together. And you're creating a platform that otherwise does not exist. So yes, now you have a reason to charge a nice rate. So what's happening is you are essentially you're actually creating something that's closer to your own software, because these are your own automations and you're integrating the tools that either A, work best with your client or community or industry, or B, that your clients are already using and you are making it happen. You are what? Solving a problem. And when we talk about the businesses that make the most amount of money, they are two people, two industries, or two types, how we're going to look at it, right? Either the person that solves a problem that can't be solved, or that takes their client to a place they could otherwise not get on their own. Those are the two people that are going to be making the most amount of money. So, let's see, we got a private chat. Anyone here an expert with Go HighLevel to Java integrations? Great question. So what happens now? Now that we understand that there's this massive potential to where you could go to these clients, you could say, hey, I want to charge you 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 a month. And at that rate, why? Because, well, otherwise, without me, you would have to get a secretary to coordinate all these things. The secretary is going to run you roughly. Well, I mean, look, we'll do the math right now. I'll pull up the map right now. So let's say um, lowest. I'm looking up lowest minimum wage because I want to go off of just the lowest number. I don't want to sell you on a fever dream. So lowest minimum wage, uh, 515. That's insane. Georgia and Wyoming. Don't live in Georgia or Wyoming if you can avoid it. So $5.15, right? Granted, that's probably going to be like I have no idea what job I'm doing at 515. But 515 times 40 times 4, you're looking at $824 a month, right? Now we're going to add 20% roughly for overhead. So you're looking at about $988.80. Okay. Yeah. Minimum wage, $5. I don't know if that's true. I just looked it up. It was like the cheapest I could see. It said Paycom minimum wage rate in the US by state, right? 515. I'm pretty sure like the national average is supposed to be like 11, but whatever. It says 515, right? So with 515, you're looking at, with overhead, you're looking at about $988 minimum. So what does that mean? That means that if I can come in and go, cool, you could and again, this is Georgia and Wyoming. So the question is like, what client is your state in? Like somebody throw me or what state is your client in, right? Somebody throw me a state that their client is in, right? So Naman says 17 in Vancouver, right? So let's do the math. So 17 times, is it a 40-hour work week in Canada? Is it Vancouver, Canada? I'm pretty sure it is. Okay, cool. 17 times 40. No way. I gotta do that again. Okay, yeah, I was right. Okay, cool. Times four. So look at this. This is without overhead. 2720. Let's add overhead. 3,264, right? So you can come in and you can go, cool, I'm going to sell you these automations. I'm going to automate a portion of your business. At the very least, what we can do is we can even automate it to a contractor or a VA offshore that isn't client or customer facing. So that way we're not worried about any potential, as we mentioned in some of the previous calls, sometimes like especially blue collar, at least in the States, they can sometimes be a little concerned with working with people who have an accent, even though they're some of the smartest people. Sometimes there's those preconceived notions, right? I'm not going to try to fix anybody, but essentially, right, you're looking at $3,200, right? $3,200. And we got people in the comments. You've got California, you've got Florida. Those are, I'm in Florida now. Those are numbers where the minimum wage is not low. Like, let's look up California, right? California minimum wage, 1550. 1550. That's pretty close to 17. Let's look up Florida. I think it's going to be a little bit lower. And just a whole bunch of laws popped up. Classic Florida. Um, Increased to $12 on September 3rd. So it's about to go to 12, right? Even at 12, right? Look, so 12, if we've got 12 times 40 times 4 without overhead, 1920. We add about 20% overhead. You're looking at $2,300. So every number I've given you, New York, oh God, let's let New York. Every time I hear New York, I just think it's like the most expensive, but I guess California is pretty competitive. Let's see, New York, minimum wage about 15. Yeah, so 15, right? You're looking at 15 times 40 times 4 times 1.2 for overhead, 2880. So if you are telling me that we're coming to these people and you're saying, hey, I'm going to lower this cost significantly, right? You're going to get the same results. Like, let's say you're working with a new client or an existing client, and you're like, hey, listen, you have a job listing out for a secretary or for X or Y. What if, what if we could look at all these tasks? I could automate all these tasks for 1,000, 1,400, 1,500 in that ballpark. And then the secretary you already do have, we just train her on tasks that actually need to have a human touch. And we can still make his or her life better, because what we're going to do is some of those automations are going to notify him or her what to do, when to do it, and who to speak with. And that's just the automation of the secretarial portion. That's not including the fact that we can have a communication bot that can automate where we redirect leads. We can have automations for every task. We can automate all these reports, all these things. We can start using tools to reduce your meeting times like Loom that gets notified to everybody via Slack. We can create a centralized Slack communication for the team. Everybody gets notified there. And then we can essentially have your team become so much more efficient. So the question, right? So again, that's the pricing. The pricing was essentially, you always want to diminish your pricing. And then we want to validate the pricing, right? We talk about this in the ultimate closing framework. How do we diminish the pricing? Look at what you're paying, look at what you could pay. And if they go, well, my budget is all the way down here, again, if you're trying to solve a $3,200 a month problem, have you ever seen a $200 solution fix a $3,200 solution? Do you understand the ROI on that would be absolutely bonkers, right? So we diminish your pricing and then we validate it. And that's an extremely effective way. Again, go watch the step 5 training if you are unfamiliar with whatever I'm telling you, but essentially diminish, then validate. So again, your problem is 3,200. I could come in and solve it at 29 or 1297. So 32, 1297. And they go, well, what about 100, 200, 300, 500, anything below your pricing? Cool. My pricing is what my pricing is. But at the same time, have you ever seen the number you gave me fix the problem you gave me? And if they go, yeah, go, cool. What, when? Like, when did a $30 tool fix a $5,000 problem? When did a $300 tool fix a $3,200 problem? The answer is going to be never. And if they tell you, because this is something that comes up too, well, I can go and do all this automation myself. I can look it up on YouTube and do it myself, right? And I'm not telling you share with them all of your secrets. I'm not saying spill your beans, but even if it came to that, even if they know, even if they tell you, they look you dead in your eye and they tell you, I know you're using high level. I know you're using Java or Service Titan or whatever tool. I know you're connecting them doing this. I know exactly what you're doing. Cool. Go do it. They're not going to. They're not going to. And if you don't believe me, watch this. How many of you change your own oil? I can go on YouTube right now and learn how to change my own oil. I'm not going to do it. How many of you cut your own hair? I can go on YouTube right now, and look up how to cut my own hair. How many of you do whatever you pay someone to do? How many of you can why would you ever pay for food again? Why don't you go out and kill a turkey, drag it home, chop its head off, feather it, pluck it, whatever, prep it, boil it, stew it? Why are you paying anybody for food? Did you buy a home? Do you rent a home? Why? Why don't you build it yourself? That is essentially we're gonna use questions to counter these questions. And so when they kind of try these games where they're like, "Well, I could just go do it." Yeah, you could. Go do it. Best of luck to you, right? I could do anything I wanna do. Am I gonna do it well? No. How much faster can somebody who's done it before do it versus somebody who's never done it before, right? Now, you don't have to let them know I have 0 experience. That's where I come in. That's where I say, watch my trainings because they're going to guide you on it. So the next training is going to cover how to use some of these automations. But the truth of the matter is, with these automations, and this is the topic I want to cover very quickly, is they can get complicated kind of quick because we have to, as I mentioned, we have to tailor it. So I want to segue into um, learning how to use these automations just a little bit because I could cover this for days and days. I want to cover just a little bit just so that way you know where to look if this is something that's intriguing you. And then I want to pivot into top of funnel content because that's kind of what we covered in the video post production. That's also going to tie into the automation and it's going to help you start getting a lot more clients. So, very quickly, we know when we're doing any of these automations that what we need to do is we need to we need to create a work breakdown structure. So again, I'm going to recap very quickly, but I'm saying this because it's very vital. I cannot automate what I don't understand. So I need to understand the workflow of a process. So from the moment a client comes in, or even how are we getting that client's attention, whether it's top of funnel content, from the moment we have their attention to the moment the moment they pay us and everything in between. We have their attention, they engage with our content, they go to the long form content, they go through the funnel, they opt into the lead magnet, they pay you, they engage with you somehow. You offer fulfillment. Fulfillment is complete. That full customer journey, you have to understand that on a fundamental level in order to say, cool, this is what we can automate because it's redundant. This is where we need a human touch. So we either need to train your staff on it or I need to bring in a contractor, which, by the way, is another high ticket thing you can do. Because if you're bringing in a contractor that you're training and making sure that it's on top of their job, guess what? You are babysitting one of their employees. So guess what? That's going to run another 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 a month. Right. And again, the same thing we do when we bring in a VA is the same thing with an automation. Cool. You have, you live in this state. The lowest you're paying somebody with overhead is 3,200, is 2,800, is 2,400. I'm going to bring in automation for the entire business. Number one. Number two, I'm going to bring in somebody who can do the things that automation can't do, that have a human touch that you can still communicate with. And that if we need to, I can fire and replace in a matter of moments. And you can't fire and replace anybody where you have any kind of employment laws. So the benefits, you're just stacking the benefits. You're just continuously stacking the benefits. So if you want to take, for example, 12, like let's say 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 a month for your automations, you could technically throw in an additional, a VA or a contractor, and you could start charging 2,500, 3,500 a month because now you have either a team of VAs and automations or whatever combination you need. Yeah, Naman, if you want to hop in, I can. You just need to connect your mic and camera. It looks like one of them is not connected. So if you want to connect one of those, I can bring you in, or you can ask your question in the chat and I can answer it there. Hey,
Hello?
Naman, how's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, I just had a question. I mean, since you're kind of talking about this, I was just wondering more on the fact of, like, if I'm trying to communicate this kind of information, because like I'd mentioned before, I work with realtors. So, um, I like the point that you mentioned about like I guess, using our systems and processes to save um, agents like time and money because they don't have to like, for example, hire these people and they can save the, like that. If you break it down to like that per hour rate, um, what would be the best way to kind of like communicate that to our ideal client in like an efficient way so that it kind of gets them thinking the same way that you have kind of explained to us?
Yeah, so it always boils down to using questions to go in for the kill. That's why when we look at the ultimate SWAS closing framework, it's just a series of like 8 or 9 questions and then the kill, right?
Hmm.
Or the close. And so when you're talking to these individuals, this is another reason why I love using a personal connection. And it's really funny because again, if you look at the Hormozy training, he talks about personalizing your outreach, talking about them like a human and actually caring about them, and then asking leading questions that kind of pull them over. Exactly what we talk about all the time in this group, right? So the way you would do that, right? If you're talking to them, um, whether they're an existing business client or not a client of yours yet, maybe a lead, or maybe they have no idea what you do, right? You're just going to ask leading questions. So, like, oh, cool, like you're a realtor. How's that going? If they tell you, um, for example, I have no leads, it's really hard for me to find anybody. I'm struggling really badly. We know based off whatever they tell you, that should tell you the prescription, right? Because the way that a business works, as we all know, the way that a business works is going to be uh, visibility to traffic, traffic to conversion, conversion to fulfillment, right? So the visibility is going to be a portion of traffic, yes, but it's not going to be the traffic that we actually get to the sales funnel. So when we're talking to these clients and talking to these leads, you are essentially wanting to ask those leading questions. And it's like this, right? Hey, oh, you're a realtor. Like, how's that going? Like, tell me about that. And you obviously know enough about realtors because you work with them, but you know what questions to ask to kind of understand their business, but also you know what questions to ask where you can essentially just sound like you actually care about what they're doing, right? So I know a little, I know a lot more about selling homes and properties than I did 3 weeks ago because I'm working with a realtor now. But essentially, like before that, I'd be like, "Oh, cool, you're selling homes. Like, how does that go? Like, how do you find people? Like, do you find properties or people? Like, how does that work?" And you're asking them questions, and then when they tell you, they're also going to tell you because people love, as we talked about in the training, people love talking about themselves. So as they talk about themselves, they're not only going to talk about their wins, but they're also going to talk about their losses or struggles. And so that's where you kind of guide it over. And so if we're talking about the automation, right? And we're just talking about like someone who's got a lot of work and they want to automate. This is how it goes. They say I'm busy or they're busier than they'd like to be, right? Because you could work 2 hours a day and be busier than you'd like to be, right? Like if I'm folding clothes every day for 2 hours, that's way more work than I want to do every week or every day folding clothes, right? Versus running a business every day for 2 hours. That's probably a little bit less time than I should, right? So you're basically going to ask questions along those lines that lead them there. So like, oh, cool. Like, how's that going? Oh, I'm so busy doing X, Y, Z. Like, oh, okay. Like, and you can ask questions where you kind of assume the answer that you want them to come to. Like, oh, okay. Like, well, are you using automations in your business? Like, do you outsource to a contractor? And like, no, what's that? Oh, bro, this is exactly what you do. This is a story about how I did it with somebody else. This is a story about how my mentor did it with somebody else. This is a story about how a buddy of mine did it with somebody else. This is a case study where basically we do blah, blah, blah. And my business is now doing it. But essentially, boom, 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 boom. And when you talk to them, you're not saying to them, hey, you're going to save way more money. You go like this. You talk, and this is something that Hormozy talks about a little bit, but he misses the mark just a tad. And I'm saying he misses the mark just a tad, not because he needs any advice from me, but because the information he's talking about is very general, whereas I'm applying it to this industry. So obviously, what I'm saying is going to be more applicable to us specifically. So he talks about how to never get rejected. And so what he says, how to never get rejected, what he does is he says, when you DM somebody, ask them if they know someone else because they're not going to say, oh, I don't want that. You didn't ask them if they wanted that. You said, hey, do you know anybody who would want XYZ? What you want them to say is you want them to say, I do, but also I want that, right? Like I know somebody who wants that, but I want that, right? The beautiful thing that whether he consciously or unconsciously stumbled across is when you talk about a third person, you create a story. And when you create a story, it's so much more converting, right? And so here's the example. So you say, oh, cool. Are you using automations? Are you outsourcing? Like, have you automated this portion of your business so you can focus on what you actually want to do, whether that's growing or sitting by the pool or, doing whatever you want to do, right? Whether it's more work or less work, you automate it and they go, no, like, what do you mean by automating? And you can complicate it, right? So when we talk about status delta, you can complicate it. So Naman, you could be like, oh, well, are you using any if this, then that technology? And they're like, what is that? Like, oh, business automations, right? And so you can kind of complicate it to create intrigue and curiosity. And so when they ask about it, you're not going to say, bro, you could do this, this, and that. You're gonna be like this. Oh, it's so cool. Here's what we do. We work with somebody, third person, right? You're not talking to them. You're talking with third person. So what we do is when we work with realtors who want to make a lot of money. So we're talking about them in the third person, right? When we work with realtors who want to make a lot of money, but they're super busy, what we do is we do this. They're usually, when we come to them, they're usually paying 28 to 3,200 a month because you got employment, they have that competitive rates, they have overhead, you know how it goes, right? And they're like, oh yeah, what? There you go, cool. So what we do instead is we come in and we build automations, and then we pair those automations with a virtual assistant. And so here are the benefits to that, right? Flat rate, we, very, very low, not even a penny for automations. You get 100 automations for less than a penny. Then we put it to a VA. The VA is trained exactly how they want them trained. Because they're a VA, because they're contracted, they still get written off as a business expense, but there's no overhead because they're an overseas contractor. There's no overhead. There's no employment loss. So we can replace them whenever we want. And we could have two or three of them for the price that most people have one employee. And the difference is these guys are way more technically, and you just go on and on and on and on. And it's not a feature dump. What you're doing is you're describing all the benefits that somebody would get or does get or has gotten, right? Case studies if possible. And if you don't have a case study, you create a hypothetical. Here's what we do when we work with realtors who are super busy. And you're describing them, but you're also showing all the benefits. And then you talk about all the benefits of those benefits, right? So they get all this, and what's the result of that? The result is they go from a 40-hour work week to a 28-hour work. They go from 40 hours struggling, losing their mind to 40 hours, and now not only is their schedule easier, but they're selling way more homes because they're just able to maintain and nurture way more leads. And so the way that you're going to pitch this specific feature, and the same thing you're going to do when you pitch your video podcast post production feature, right? You're going to ask leading questions. So if I want to pitch a video post production, what am I going to do? Oh, you're a realtor? Oh, cool. Like, are you on TikTok? Are you on? And they're like, nah, I don't use all that. And you're like, what? Like, bro, a business is traffic conversion fulfillment. You can fulfill because look at you. You've been doing this forever. You're one of the best realtors I know. Conversion, well, you wouldn't be closing you wouldn't be fulfilling if you weren't closing, right? Fulfillment, I know you're good because you have reviews, you have clients. Conversion, I know you're good because you have clients. But dude, imagine how many more you would have if you had traffic nailed in. And you can do the math, bro. If you're converting at 2%, which is insane for a realtor, and you're doing that at 1,000 people, viewers or audience, however the metric is for the platform, right? You're doing that with 1,000 viewers a month. Imagine if we got you to 3, 4, 5,000 viewers a month, and they were all localized to you. Like you sit at a 2% conversion, and you go from 1,000 to 5,000, you're gonna 5x your leads, most likely 5x your sales, just based off of basic numbers and math alone. Not even changing your funnel, not even changing the fulfillment. And what's really cool is once we get enough traffic, you could look at the funnel and say, cool, I want to test this. I want to test that. I want to see what performs better. And now not only are you boosting your traffic, but dude, you could boost your conversion too. And you do the math. 1,000 at 2% is this, but 1,000 at 4%, right there, you just doubled your money yet again. So what if we doubled the traffic, doubled the conversion, and we made it all in a fraction of the time that you were spending before? And so the way you pitch whatever it is, and you could pitch all of it. You could do the automations, the video, top of funnel content, the website, the business coaching. What do you think I'm doing? And I'm able to come in and I'm able to charge people 4,000 a month, 6,000 a month, $10,200 a month, because I'm able to come in and go, cool, we're going to do A, B, C, and D. And it's going to replace all these people. It's going to have all these benefits. And because it's one cohesive unit, I am now going to oversee that whole thing. And so that's essentially how you pitch it. And when you pitch it to these people, you're coming in as a growth consultant. So what is a growth consultant? Very quickly, a growth consultant, you're not just a marketer. You're not just a marketer. You're overseeing the entire marketing campaign, the entire marketing and growth process. I can't grow profitability if revenue shoots up, but expenses go up with it, right? Because then profitability is not going to change, or it could even worsen. Look at e-commerce stores. Average profitability for an e-commerce store is between 10 and 20%. That's not including the personal taxes that they have to pay on that. So it basically, what happens is you start, this is really cool. You start so small with a website that you're giving away for free. Then you go into organic. Then you go into organic paid. Then you go into paid. Then you say, we have automations. Then you say, we can do your top of funnel content. If you need help with social media, which 99% of people do, we can do your social media. We can create the content, or we can schedule it as well, or we can do both. And then we have automation. So, hey, you're growing because we're making you so much money. How are you handling the leads coming in? You're overwhelmed. Cool. You're thinking about hiring somebody. What are you going to pay them? Great. You're going to pay them, 3,000 a month. What if I came in at 1,200 a month and automated the whole thing for you, right? And you're just able to scale and grow with them. And you're not saying, so for one of Imram's original questions in the call, which is like, oh, well, jumping into high ticket might be a little daunting. It is. So that's where that marketing ascension model comes in, where you're saying, I'm going to start small. As I make you more, I will offer you more, only with the intention of making you much, much more. So I know it's a super long-winded answer, but I want to show how it kind of ties in with all the offers as we kind of come full circle.
No, thank you for that. No, I actually got a lot more insight into things like I'm thinking about now. So I appreciate you giving a longer answer than just a simple one. So
Of
thank you.
course. And what I will tell you is, for me, I'm very control oriented. So you got to be self-aware in business, right?
Yeah.
You have to be self-aware. I am a control freak because my concern is if the quality is not there. My concern is not rejection. So I'm going to be really honest and open with you guys. My concern is not rejection. My concern is I close a client, the client loves me. I stumble one time because I fell asleep behind the wheel, and that ruins the relationship. That's my biggest concern. So and again, being self aware, I have to really push myself on separating myself. But for me to put my head on the pillow and go to sleep at night, I have to have quality assurance built in. So what I do is to automate, you go from a marketer to a growth consultant to a project manager. And essentially the growth consultant and project manager is something similar. But here's what you're going to do. When down the road, like think long-term vision, because this is going to be the thing that really guides the steps, right? Like when you're driving a car, for those of you who drive cars, because I've recently realized I have family who's never driven a car before, and I work with people who've never driven a car before. So if you have driven a car before, never look directly in front of the car. You cannot look 2 feet in front of the car when you're on the highway. You will go back and forth. I'm doing my grandma Hollywood green screen driving. You will go back and forth in the lane, forth, back, forth, back, forth. You have to look they tell you like look 10, 20 seconds down the road when you're on the highway, right? And that will keep the car aligned towards its destination, right? Again, I'm talking about on the highway. If you're driving downtown or if kids are running in front of you, please look in front of the car. I'll say that for legal purposes. But essentially the idea is you want to look long term. So long term, if I have 50 to 100 clients, can I do SEO for every client? No. Can I do paid marketing for every client? No. Am I going to build all their websites? No. So what do I need to do? I need to figure out how to bring in SMEs, subject matter experts. I need to figure out how to document everything we need to do, right? And then I need to figure out how to communicate to everybody what they need to do. And then I need to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. And then I need to make sure that it's done on time. And then I need to make sure it's done up to par of the quality that I want. And so this is what's going to happen. You transition from marketer to project manager. Growth consultant is the other option. What is the difference? So it's basically like a prong. So it goes from you start growth marketing, and then you go either project manager or growth consultant. Project manager is done for you. You're doing it for them. You have to manage and mitigate the entire problem. Growth consultant is done with you. It is the consulting aspect. You're going to tell them exactly what to do. You're going to hold their hand through it. But because you're not doing it for them, you don't need any other help. It's just you and them. So you're telling them, hey, you need to do this. You need to do that. Like, for example, I'm telling you guys what to do. It doesn't take 15 of me to do that. But if I am working for you, or if you are a client of mine, then what's going to happen is I am going to have to essentially have people in those places to do those things, right? I'm going to have to outsource, right? So project manager, so you go marketer to project manager where you're done for you, and you can do both. I do both. Done for you is the more project management side, and then done with you is the growth consulting side. So that's where down the road, that's where it's going to go. And then for you guys, if you're like, hey, I want to run my own marketing agency, you're going to have to become a project manager. And the project manager essentially is going to elevate, just like in the SASO process where you're continuously promoting yourself. And essentially you're going to manage the people, the projects. Then you're going to elevate and you're going to manage the people who manage the projects. Then you're going to elevate and you're going to manage the guy or gal who manages the people who manage the project while you do whatever you want to do. And as you get more people, the scope of control increases. Then you have another guy or gal who manages more people who have more projects. So every guy or gal you have, depending on the workload, right? Because scope of control usually refers to 3 to 5. But if it's really easy to run, like for example, if you're doing strict SaaS, then you don't need 3 people per 5 clients. It wouldn't even mathematically or financially make sense. Um, but you look at the scope of control, you measure it, and you basically go, cool, one person can handle about this many clients. And then you start having an account manager over every single person managing those clients. So it gets, again, it depends on the route you want to take. If you get really good at consulting, then you can charge really super high ticket. What I will say is it does get harder because growth consulting, you have to have a lot of, for example, like if I go to Hormozy, it's going to be $250,000 for a day, which is absolutely nuts for most people, right? But he can charge 250 because how many businesses has he done it before in the past? So the route I'm going and the route that I enjoy going is I say marketer to project manager, then to growth consultant. Because what you can do is you can go from starting out, you can start out super lean, you can start out in a space where it's very comfortable for you to make mistakes. Then you go to project manager where you're managing the project, you're putting your fingers in every single pie, you're touching every single part of the project. You're saying, cool, I don't know SEO. So once I have my team built out, I want to go work with the SEO guy. I want him to teach me or her to teach me everything. Then I want to go to the marketing guy. I want you to teach me and teach me everything you know. Then I want to go to the onboarding and I want to basically you can then go and learn all of these steps after you build out your team. And so this is why a lot of people will come to me and they'll be like, um, I don't know high level. I don't know this. I don't know that. I need to learn more before I start. No, you don't. No, you do not. I'll give you 2 examples. Number one, who nobody really cares about, me. I don't know all these skills. There's some of you that know more high level than me, and yet I'm making 20 times more money a month. That's not for me to flex on you. If anything, that should inspire you, right? Because I know less, I'm making more. So tell yourself this, like seriously, I'm telling you this right now. If me, the schmuck, compared to you knowledge wise, knows less and I'm making more, imagine if you know more, how much more you could make than me, right? That's number one. Number two, go look at Gymshark. Almost everybody knows the brand Gymshark. Go look at what that guy did when he grew his business. He scaled it up. He put in the right teams, and he's still a very smart guy. I'm not diminishing that, right? He scaled it up, and he essentially said, once it was scaled up and it was automated, guess what he did? He went and he had a buddy of his, and he essentially would rotate with his buddy. And he would say, "You're going to be the CEO for 5 weeks, or I think it was like a week or a couple months at a time. It was a month to a couple months at a time." So he said, "You're going to be the CEO for the next 3 or 4 months. I'm going to go down and I'm going to go work with these people and learn everything I can." So he would go to his distributor or his production company in China or wherever it was. I want to say it was China. And he went to China and he went and worked with them for like a couple weeks or maybe a couple months. Learned everything, came back. He switched with the CEO. He told that CEO, "Now you go there and you learn everything." And then they switched back. And then he said, "Cool. Now I'm going to go work with marketing." He worked with marketing for a couple weeks. Then he switched, tells his acting CEO, "Now you go learn." And by doing that, he essentially cross trained himself in every department and he cross trained his replacement in every department, paying himself to learn, paying his replacement to learn, and then fully replacing himself in the business. So that is essentially why I say you don't need to learn these steps because I can come in and I can manage professionals who know what they're doing. And where can you find these professionals? Fiverr. Facebook groups, and then just make sure the guy has a Fiverr, make sure the guy has a Fiverr or Upwork, right? And that's essentially all you're doing. So that's basically all I'm doing in terms of like the skill wise, right? So the next thing I want to cover some before I'll see if anyone has any questions before I jump into it. But does what I'm going to cover is essentially um, the what am I trying to say? The management. So the time management, the project management. That's what I'm going to cover a little bit on this call, a lot of it on the next call. So I want to cover that stuff. Before I do, I want to see if there's any questions. Let's see. Naman says, I really think it's about communicating value and then worrying about fulfillment, which can always be worked on in the back end. Fulfillment is almost always the easiest thing, so long as you understand enough about what you're offering. Here's what I mean. If you're running marketing, you cannot guarantee a certain amount of clients. If you do, I wouldn't guarantee within a certain time frame because it's just going to be really difficult. With SEO, you can guarantee it, but it's going to be kind of difficult. So make sure you know what you're guaranteeing. For SEO, you cannot ever guarantee the number one ranking spot. It's just not possible. You can't guarantee it. So if you guarantee that, and I tell clients all the time, if somebody guarantees your number one SEO spot, run. They don't know what they're doing. So make sure you understand enough about the fulfillment process to where you can make guarantees and judgment calls that actually establish or reestablish your credibility and the trust in what you're saying versus saying, oh, we can get you the moon. We can, I'll get you Tesla. Like you don't overpromise and underdeliver, right? So as long as you understand the fulfillment and what you can promise, the fact of the matter is 1,000, 10,000, 200,000 people um, on Fiverr, on Upwork that can basically do the fulfillment for you. The communicating the value and the overseeing of the project and understanding the benefit, that's the marketing component. A good marketing, 'cause there's 1,000 marketers out there, they're not good at what they're doing because they don't understand marketing. That's where your value is going to come in, is communicating that value, delivering that value, ensuring a smooth process for the client. But yeah, what Namad said, communicating value and then worrying about fulfillment. I've always this is a firm belief of mine. If you want to learn two skills that will forever change the way you do business. Two skills. It's communication and project management. That's it. Because what I'm communicating, for example, on this call right now, I'm communicating things that you can find online, but the way I'm packaging it together and handing it over to you is done in a format that people enjoy. When I speak to clients or leads that become clients, I'm communicating. There's nothing different about what I'm doing versus what uh, can anybody else can do, right? I'm not doing anything that is proprietary to Alec Roy. There's nothing I'm doing that's proprietary to me. I have my say so process. I have my experience. I have my personality that I'm injecting, but there's nothing I'm doing that's proprietary to me, right? So if you can learn project management and if you can learn communication, and the communication boils down to this clear guidelines for what I want to be done, how I'm feeling, and of course, some kind of emotional intelligence, right? But if you understand emotional intelligence, which boils down to communication and project management, basically, this is what we want to do. What do we need to do it? Mitigating every single one of those. That's essentially the two skills. And then from those skills, you can expand it, you can get into marketing. But again, if you're project management, then you communicate to a marketer, this is what I want done. How are we going to do it? And then whatever pricing they give you, that becomes your 20%. And then you're going to 5x that 20%. And so again, project management and communication are the two biggest things. Because if you can communicate to subject matter experts the project that you need to complete and you can mitigate that process and you can document that process and then you can eliminate what needs to be done by talking to people and figuring out, hey, what do we need? What do we not need? Right. That's essentially all that you would need to do. So any questions on that before I get into managing time and projects? No questions on that? Awesome. So project management. Once you've documented what you need to be done, what you need to do. Well, let me back up a little bit. There's two ways I like to document and schedule things. So number one, I schedule blocks of time. And then number two, I schedule specific tasks. So, um, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys two main tools that I like to use. Tools you guys have probably heard of, but I'm going to pull them up really quickly. I'm not going to show my back end because I don't need anybody um, seeing the projects I'm working on. But let me share my screen very quickly. So the tools are going to be ClickUp and they're going to be Notion. So when I'm using Notion, what I'm doing is Notion essentially will act very similar. This is exactly what it looks like. This will act very similar to a project management tool. I use Notion for my personal project management. And what I'm going to do here is essentially you're going to have a page, you can put your projects, and then these are projects I like to do. And these are projects for overall things. So, for example, I'm going to put like for SASO University things I need to do, for SASO Funnels things I need to do. And then I'm going to put for a client overarching things I need to do. So these are going to be like basically my broad strokes. I'm going to use this for my personal scheduling. I'm not going to use this as a project management tool, but more so an advanced kind of calendar, an advanced kind of way to keep track of overall plans. When I get into the specifics of a certain project, so again, if we're talking about the SASO process where we simplify, automate, just those first two letters, I'm going to simplify my workload and I'm going to put that into a tool called ClickUp. ClickUp, as you can see, is not that different from Notion. What I use ClickUp for is this is where I'm going to use all of my actual um, project management tasks for a specific project. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to essentially say, cool, we have this project for this specific client. Here's all the tasks that need to be done. Here's when they need to be done. Here's what stage they're in. Here's what priority they're in. And here's when I'm assigning them to people. Now, here's the cool thing. And I have training that's going to be coming out on this. I can come into a tool like Zapier and I can come over here. And the same goes for Make. I can go to ClickUp. And what can I do here? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pair this with Lead Connector. And what I can do is I can with Lead Connector, or here's another one I can do. Let me see. It's going to tell me all these things I can do. I want to switch the order, so let me go back. But what I can do is I can essentially say when I have a new client sign up on a form via HighLevel, or another one you could use, Jotform. So I could have Jotform go directly into ClickUp. And so what's going to happen with this, right? I'm not even touching HighLevel, which we can do HighLevel, of course, but just showing you different ways to do this, right? I can create ClickUp tasks for new submissions. So I can have somebody fill out a form. Listen to this. This is crazy, right? It's not that crazy, but it just gets me excited. I can have somebody fill out a form. The form will create new tasks in Jotform. Those tasks will be assigned to certain VAs. I can then notify those VAs using Slack. And so with Slack, it's a central communication. So they're logged in. I can send them a message whenever a Google Sheet row is updated. So for example, if I'm using, or a Google form, right? So they fill out a Google form, it updates the sheet notifies them. I could use a Jotform and ClickUp. I could say, hey, when I get new tasks and I'm connecting this to Slack, add a new message in Slack as a ClickUp tasks update. So guess what happens? As my VAs get as a so if the form gets filled out from a new client, those forms get turned into tasks in ClickUp. ClickUp notifies my VAs and me in Slack. Then, as my virtual assistants complete tasks, Slack notifies me, hey, this task done, this task done, this task done. I don't have to say, hey, where are we on this task? I can look at ClickUp, see an overall project completion status, and then I'll get notified. I don't have to say, hey, is it updated or not? They'll be, oh, yeah, it was up. No, Slack goes, bing, hey, update. They just completed this task. Bing, hey, update. This task completed. Bing, hey, update. This task was paused. And then I see them typing in the chat, hey, I have a question about this or that. Cool, what's going on? Or hey, this was elevated for review. And so I can have all of my communication put on Slack. And so I'm integrating a project management tool. I'm integrating Slack. I'm having my VAs all have Slack accounts so they can all see it and they all get notified. And here's something cool. Let's say you don't want to use Slack because maybe your team's not that built out. You can come in here and you can use, let's see, is WhatsApp on this one or maybe it's on Make? So we can go over to Make. I believe Make has it. And we can have WhatsApp automations. We can have Facebook messaging automations. You can use whatever platform you want. I want to say WhatsApp is on here. Let's see. Yeah, so WhatsApp, I can have a WhatsApp on here and I can notify them via WhatsApp because I know a lot of my virtual assistants love using WhatsApp. I could use, if I could spell, I could use Discord. So if I don't want to pay for Slack, Slack is super, super nice once you start really rolling around. And if you want to have different categories, that's a whole nother training that we'll cover. But if you have, for example, I have a channel where it's like failed payments. So every time it's a failed payment, it goes in that channel, and then I'm notified along with this with the subject matter expert. I have a channel where it's ClickUp updates for a specific business. So it's like project name and then updates, and I get a notification for ClickUp when it's done there. So I like organizing it more. But when you're just starting out, you can start with Discord and you can start with WhatsApp, and you could basically say, cool, I want to integrate ClickUp right here with WhatsApp right there. And I can integrate the tool. When a task is completed, it notifies me via WhatsApp, or it notifies my VA via WhatsApp, or it gives me a push notification, or however I want to do that. And so it's nice because I can, number one, have a centralized communication platform where everybody can engage. That's number one. Number two, this is like an advanced, I say advanced, maybe you'll think so, maybe you won't. But this is an advanced productivity tip. I can on my phone, I can come in here and I have different do not disturb settings, if you can see those. So I can come in here and I can go, cool, I'm on work mode. And guess what work mode allows? Work mode only allows notifications from Slack, from WhatsApp, from Discord, from whatever centralized communication platform. And then it also has, ClickUp, Stripe, whatever. It has certain things that are tagged for productivity. But now I can make sure I'm not getting texts and Facebook messages when I don't want them. I'm only getting communication from things that are going to help me remain focused and productive. Naman said, would you get the VA to pay the Slack monthly fee or you cover that for them? No, I would cover that for them. I would definitely cover that for them. Because it's basically you pay per seat. But again, if you don't want to pay per seat, and it's only like $3 a seat. If you want to pay per seat, then go over to WhatsApp, go over to any kind of messaging. Let me see if there's any like messaging. Okay, communication. Let's try this. So chat. Let me remove this. So look at all these different chats. So I can integrate with all these different chats. There's bound to be free WeChat, Telegram, WhatsApp, Google Chat, Messenger. Those are all free, right? Google Chat, that's free. I'm not familiar with too many of these. Maybe I'm like embarrassing myself because I'm not familiar with too many of these. But the idea is that you can essentially integrate with all these different communication platforms if you don't want to go with Slack. And let's see, Team Chat, Slack, Discord, Teams. I don't know these, but that's not a bad idea to start looking at them, right? GroupMe, GroupMe I had in college that's bringing back some terrible memories. But essentially, you can use free tools if you don't want to use Slack. The appeal of Slack again is you can have different channels, different categories. You can direct DM or you can group DM. It's basically like if Discord were more professional. So again, you go with Discord, right? So whatever central communication, and this is why this automation training is a little more complicated than me just saying, hey, video post-production, use Squadcast, edit in Descript because that's 30 a month. You get the studio sound. You can post-produce there, or you can take it a step further, download the video, throw it into Opus Clips, throw it into video, throw it into Repurpose, post-produce, download, put it into Social Beat, right? That's like, I know it sounds complicated, but I can explain that process in 5 minutes. This process gets a little bit more complicated. So again, very quick recap. I'm going to use number one, I'm going to block off time on my Google Calendar. I'm going to do those in time blocks. I'm basically going to be like from, you know, this time to that time in a 4-hour span. This is what I'm focused on. Or from that time to this time, that's what I'm focused on. And I'm going to integrate that calendar with HighLevel if I have any calls. And basically, that's going to cover my broad strokes, my general things, and then my sales calendar. So I know, cool, I need to make sure that I'm on this call, even though I'm looking at this productivity time. Maybe I need to move that around, right? So that's just my general calendar. You can do that in Google Calendar. Super simple. Sync it with your HighLevel. Then I'm going to go to Notion. Notion, I mean, let me see. I'm just going to pull up my Notion real quick. Let's see. Let me see if I can share the entire screen. Screen sharing. Okay. I don't know if it's going to share. Let me share one screen. Yeah, it's not letting me. I don't know why it's not letting me share one screen, but essentially, oh, here we go. Never mind. Ignore me. I was being dumb. Okay, here we go. So, Naman asked, how long did it take to use Notion? Notion is super complicated. I'm going to be real. I just use it as like a way to just jot ideas down. And I'm going to show you guys how to learn all this stuff, but it's really not too difficult. It's just a little overwhelming at first. But basically, you have projects and tasks. So all I do is I create projects, and then in those projects, I add tasks, I add statuses. None of this is up to date. Um, but you can see, like when I was doing the SASO training, I just had these really broad strokes. This is like super broad strokes, right? None of that is like in depth whatsoever. Super, super broad strokes just to be like, okay, cool. These are, I'm basically just throwing ideas up there. I wouldn't, again, and this is, I'm not saying this to put you down, Amon, but I want to say this to as like a learning moment. Uh, Use it however you want to use it, but don't think I need to learn how to use it before I jump into it. Don't worry about that. Start, just pop it open, start typing up just general notes, right? ClickUp is going to be where you're taking. So, for example, I would build my entire process out in Notion, and I can let me see if I have one. I'll show you like one of my first onboarding, and this is super outdated, but let me show you one of my first onboarding. Let me see if I even still have it. I don't even think I still have it. I think I got rid of it, but I had an onboarding thing where I just threw things up here. Here's one. Here's one of my first like social media content calendar. I just threw this up there and I just typed up all my notes. And then I have like a progress again. These aren't updated, but basically we just have like content, month, and then public files I had. So this was just a super convenient way just to combine different forms of um, content together. You can do the same thing anywhere. It's just basically a to-do list. Notion, it's very similar to like Apple Notes. If you have Apple Notes, you can just where you type it on one spot, you can type it on another spot and it'll show up on the phone. ClickUp again is going to be where you actually manage your projects. So if you're wondering why ClickUp, here's why. Monday, if you've probably heard of Monday CRM or Monday is a project management tool, we don't need a CRM. We have HighLevel. Then you have ClickUp. So ClickUp versus Monday, for us, ClickUp is going to win because we don't need the CRM. We already have that. Number two, monthly for ClickUp. I guess they increased their pricing pretty recently. It used to be 5 a month. Now it's 10 a month, which is relative to Asana. So here's Asana. Asana is basically the exact same thing. To me, it just looks a little bit more boring. I mean, like, there's really no issue if you go one or the other. And I think the pricing here is 99 cents more a month. That's nothing. So really, ClickUp or Asana doesn't really matter. And guess where we're going to go to learn all this? I know you guys are sick of it. I don't care. This is how I learned. And I want to answer this question. Let's see. I want to go to um, make.com. So Naman asked this question earlier and I didn't answer it. I want to answer it now as we begin to wrap up. Naman asked me, let me see what he said. I want to say, I think it was Naman. Somebody asked me, How long did it take for me to get started, or how long have I been doing this for? Could be wrong. Yeah, right here. So it was not Naman, my bad. So somebody asked, when did you start? I started on my own in November of 2022. That's not that long ago. It has been one of the best experiences that I've ever done. It's been a little frustrating at times. And here is the biggest thing I want to say. I wish somebody had told me that learning the technical stuff is as easy as what I'm showing you right now. Honest to God, I don't. People tell me all the time, like, you need to have these skills, you need to do that. No, you don't. Anybody who tells you that, just tell them to shut up and go away. Okay. And I want to show you. I really wish it were more complicated, because then I could probably charge people 1,000 a month to be in this program. I want to show you seriously. First thing I ever did first was my lawn care client. Right? Watch this. How to build a lawn care website. This is where I started. I just started with typing that in. And then I got specific because as I learned, I was like, cool, I think I need to build it on WordPress. And then I realized I need a plugin. So I was like, how to build a website with Elementor. I just came here and I just watched these videos and I just look at this. And I just suffered through, look at this, hour 37 minutes. I just suffered through that training because I was like, holy cow, I can learn. Think about this. Hour 37, that's a long video. I can learn how to build an entire website, which I can monetize. I could sell way faster return on my investment than any college degree. I have one, so I know. Way faster return on investment. 97 minutes. Let's say I'm pausing playing as I'm updating it. Let's be dramatic. Let's say it takes me 8 hours. 8 hours. I could turn around and sold that for thousands of dollars. Seriously, like when it comes to technical skills, stop trying to be a master. Stop. What Naman said, fulfill, then turn around and hop on here. So I'm saying that to say, when it comes to these automations, I'm just going to go here, make tutorial for complete beginners. So, and I want to say this to clarify, it would be a waste of my time for me to turn around and remake the content that these individuals have made. That'd be a complete waste of my time. Just like it would be a complete waste of your time to master make.com, to master Zapier, and then start building Zaps. That's a waste of time. What do you need to do? Look up the tutorial on how to do it. Try to do it yourself. If you don't have time, charge a setup fee, hand it off to a VA. That is simply how easy it is. And for me, I started in November of 22. My wife and I had a baby. It was awesome. It has definitely taken a toll, as anybody with a child can tell you. We've moved from Virginia to Florida. There's been a lot going on. And I'm still, like, last month I closed uh a little over 14K in deals while having just moved, while having to deal with a baby, while all these different things in my personal life are going on. And I'm not complaining. I'm super blessed. I'm very appreciative. But I closed 14K in deals, barely lifting a finger, right? Which is, if you had told me that last year this time, I probably wouldn't have believed you. So it was absolutely insane. That was 1 month. So super, super blessed. But again, all I did was go here. Look at this, make.com. I can spell. I got my sausage fingers out today. Notion, tutorial for beginners. Look at this. All I have to do is figure out, how do I do what I want to do? You want to see something crazy? Check this out. Make. Well, I like doing Zapier better because make sounds, it's just too general. I wish their name wasn't that. Zapier tutorial service Titan. Look at this. Setting up Zapier with Service Titan. 4 minutes. That's not difficult. 10 minutes, 9 minutes. These are not long trainings. So if you're wondering, how can I do this myself? Two options. Do you have time? Go to YouTube. Do you not have time? Set up the virtual assistant. That's it. It's that simple. If you're nervous about it, do, I don't know, push-ups, go on a run, do whatever you got to do, calm your nerves, go in there, close the deal. And what you can do, and I see one of the questions I'm going to answer, but what you can do is you can come in and say, hey, listen, I've never done this before. So I want to do this for you for free. And all I'm asking in return is that you give me some kind of feedback. You tell me what you like, what you don't like, and you let me learn along the way because this is a newer process for me. So that's basically what I'm looking for. So why would they say yes to that? Well, if you're going to be charging, and you tell them I'm going to be charging 1,000, 2,000 for this. So if you're going to be charging 1,000, 2,000, they're getting it for free. They're not going to complain if they're getting it for free. Who's going to complain with something for free? You get to learn. They are patient with you because they're saving 1,000, 2,000, and that's actually way more down the road because you're building out the whole system. So they're saving 1,000 or 2,000 a month. Not to mention that amount or that amount would already have saved them 32, 2,800 a month. So it starts compounding. So you get your testimonials. You're bound to find at least one or two people for free where you can stumble along it. And you just let them know, I've noticed this before. It's free. And then your next two, hey, I'm a little newer, or hey, you know, whatever. For that reason, this is the price I'm charging. And then what do? Best vertical SWAS offer training. We increase our pricing every 3 to 5 clients. Everything, as I always tell you on these calls, comes full circle and it's amazing. What I will say before I take Grant's question is I started my solo journey in November of 2022 with the SASO business. I've been in business doing like helping businesses automate, expand this whole spiel that I put together and came up with. I've been doing that for almost 5 years. So this wasn't me saying, cool, I started, less than a year ago and I'm making this crap up. I was like, no, I've been working as a business consultant for several years. I've had extreme and immense success and I've loved it. That's why I went on my own because I loved it so much. I was like, this was the tipping point for me. Worked with a business that was making 800,000 a year. We pushed them up. I pushed them up single handedly. My first day on the job, I kid you not, this is not a joke. My first day on the job, I'm told by the procurement manager that we're about to get fired. This is my first day on the job. They're about to get fired. Our contract's about to get cut. I have 1 month to turn it around. That's what I'm told my first day. Turns out I was hired to go down with the ship. That's what I was hired to do. They didn't tell me that. Turn the account around in 4 months. So I was supposed to get fired in 1 month. In 4 months, we had our first expansion where it was an addendum to the contract. We went from 800,000 to 1.2 million. Okay. In 4 months, I added $400,000 to their top line. In the next 8 months, we landed 11 more contracts. We landed the entire contract. It was a contract for every location within a certain business that I can't name. It was 11 locations. We landed all of them and we expanded to another location of the main business. So I got them from 1.2 million at one location to 12 minimums, 12 new locations. I don't know how many locations they got that were within the main business. What ticked me off was I got $100 raise per paycheck, but I made them stupid amount of money. So I said, cool, I'm going to leave and do it on my own. That's essentially why I left. So I don't like patting myself on the back. I'm not saying that to brag, but I'm saying that to say, if you're concerned about the November 22 date range, don't be. I've been doing this for a while. Everywhere I go, I'm seeing immense success and results. And now I want to do it for myself. And now I want to share people how to do it themselves. So one of these questions, what you're teaching is definitely the most valuable B2B service there is. After a point, we're basically building and managing the whole business for the client in the most efficient and low cost way. Yeah, exactly. I appreciate the compliment. It really means a lot. But the entire idea, right? Anything B2B is about saving money. It's about making money directly or indirectly. So that can be making them money. It could be keeping them more of their money, profitability. It can be saving them time, right? So lower costs, lower overhead, anything that is increasing their bottom line, anything that is increasing revenue, decreasing costs, one or the other or both is going to make them happy, right? And when you come in as an automation expert, think about this. I like to pair the service with the skill set that I have. And I'll say this to wrap up. I like to pair the service with the skill set that I have. So if you're someone who loves marketing, focus on top of funnel content, focus on organic and paid ads, focus on whatever growth strategy that you feel you really enjoy. Maybe you're going to get more specific and you're like, hey, I hate SEO. Most people hate SEO, right? Uh, if you are an outgoing, sociable person, you're going to hate SEO, right? You're going to love marketing. You're going to hate SEO. That's usually how it goes. If you are more nerdy, you like the technical stuff, you kind of like not socializing, you're going to like the SEO a little bit more. Sorry, that's just how it is in the past. Not a bad thing, just keeping it real, right? So if you like those two things, if you like technical and marketing, go SEO. If you like marketing and being outgoing and making content, go organic, social, or paid. If you aren't a fan of getting leads and you're like, I don't know if I can get them leads, I really don't want to do that. Cool. If you can't get them more money, why don't you save them more money and go with automations? Because now you can say, cool, you can pay less people and you can automate this whole thing. And I can still reasonably charge 1,000 a month because I know in my heart of hearts, I'm saving them 2,800, 3,200 a month, right? Even at the lowest we saw was like my Wyoming and was it Georgia or something? I know Wyoming was one of them, of course, but at the lowest it was 1,000 a month. But again, I'm looking at minimum wage. If you're automating and connecting them with experts and professionals, you go look up, for example, go look up a social media manager's median salary. It's roughly 50-ish K, right? 50K versus 12K. That's a no brainer. It's a no brainer. 50K versus 25K. It's a no. And again, this 50K doesn't even include the overhead, the benefits, the employment. It doesn't include any of the overhead. Okay. 50K versus 25K. So when you can do it like that and you can phrase it like that, you can diminish your pricing, then justify it. And then you pick the skill set that reflects your preferences, your personality, or maybe just your past successes. Like, hey, I did all three of these. This is what I did the best. So I'm going to keep doing the automation thing. Right. Or all of them, and you do all of them for a really stupid high rate. Like, hey, we manage this whole thing and we are going to manage it for, 10 to 15K, something absolutely insane. I know because I'm doing it. So again, this call, I really wanted to cover finalizing the high ticket recurring services. I wanted to start touching the automations, very lightly covering the scheduling, the management of projects and time. Next call, I'm going to, number one, of course, as always, answer any questions you guys have. And then number two, I'm going to start covering very in depth how we're going to do basic time management, project uh, overview, and project management, and then anything or any questions that you guys have between now and then that pertain to that topic, I will intertwine with it. But that is all I have for everybody. If you guys have any other questions, comments, concerns, requests, I'll hang around for a couple more minutes, see if you guys have anything. Um, Imram, Naman, you guys are in the chat. Do you guys have any thing that you guys want to bring up or talk about before we head out? Any questions or comments, or you want to hop in the chat at all? But if you guys are good to go. Let's see. We have something in the chat. Awesome, Naman. I appreciate it. If you have anything, let me know. DM me. Um, what I will say as we dismiss is number one, melt my phone. I'm here for you guys. Melt my phone. What I would like to see you guys doing, a lot of you have questions that others could benefit from. Be bold. Ask your questions in public because a lot of you are asking the same questions other ask. A lot of you have really cool feedback. Um, and a lot of you are doing things very differently than how I do it and doing it very differently than how others do it. Talk to each other. Have it in the open comments, have it in the open group. And that way we can really benefit from the social aspect of social media. I know, scary. And number two, make sure you guys, as often as you can, are hopping in the training and consuming that content because that's going to be what makes a world of difference. If you have any confusion on how to do certain things, the training usually clarifies it. As always, though, feel free to reach out. But that is it for today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the call. Yeah. And thanks for coming out. Have a good one.